Hi, my name is Rachel. Welcome back to my channel. I just reheated this coffee and I realized that it's been sitting on my counter since about 10 a.m. and it's now like 1:45. Hopefully it doesn't hurt my stomach. So in the United States, where I live, February is Black History Month. Now, in honor of Black History Month, I have been making sure to read Black authors, and I have been making sure to repost and support other Black bookish creators. And another thing that I want to do is talk about my favorite books by Black authors. This list is not going to be fully all-encompassing of like every book I've ever read by a Black author. However, it is going to be ones that hold a special place in my heart for whatever reason that may be, and they are from varying genres. And yeah, without further ado, let's just get into it. The first book that I want to talk about is I dropped it. The first book I want to talk about is The Rage of Dragons by Evan Winter, and subsequently The Fires of Vengeance by Evan Winter. I'm just gonna bundle these together. The first time that I read The Rage of Dragons, I actually buddy read this with my friend who's also on BookTube. Her name is Jade at Jade Juniper, who I'll link down below because she has amazing writing content. She's so wholesome. Check her out. She's also a huge dragon fan. So yeah, we buddy read this together. The way that we both went completely feral for this book, I don't know what it is about it, but like, oh my god, this book is just crafted in such a way where I'm like, the writing is beautiful, the characters are interesting, the characters have flaws, they make mistakes, we get to see them learn and grow, we get to see them falter, make more mistakes. It's just such an intense world, and I think the magic is also really unique and fun. And I don't know, there's just so much I love about this series in particular. And I've already read this book 3 times, and I've only read the second one once, however, but I do want to reread both of them whenever we finally get news about book 3, which is called The Lord of Demons, which I don't think has a cover yet, and it doesn't have a release date yet. Evan Winter, I am begging you. I am on my knees, okay? Please, I need you. I need you to finish this series. Please don't leave me hanging. Please don't pull a Pat Rothfuss. Please don't pull a George R.R. Martin. I need The Lord of Demons almost as much as I need air. Like, the way book 2 ended, there was so much going on, and I have so many questions that are just like left hanging in the balance, and I really need answers, and I love this series so much. Highly recommend. The next book I want to talk about is Pet by Akwaeke Emezi, and also Bitter, which I don't have a copy of, but Bitter is kind of the prequel to this story. This story follows Jam and her friend Redemption, and essentially Jam accidentally scratches herself in her mother's workroom and gets blood on this painting, which is a painting that her mother has had in her room for quite a while. And I don't think Jam really knows the full story of like when she painted this, like what the painting is about, and she just doesn't know much about it. And she accidentally gets blood on this painting, and out of the painting crawls this monster. And this monster, who is called Pet, and Jam develop this friendship, and nobody else can see Pet except for Jam. And Pet basically makes Jam reconsider everything she's ever thought she's known about what a monster is supposed to look like. And they learn that there is something going on in their town that they live in called Lucille, and Jam and Pet essentially are trying to figure out what is happening. And this story kind of this story walks that line of like what makes a monster. Like, this monster called Pet, everyone would say like, oh, he's a monster because he's scary looking, or he's ugly, whatever, he has claws. And then it asks you like, you know, are your behaviors more important than you realize? Like, can your behaviors be monstrous? And there's a lot more to it than that, but I'm trying really hard to be very vague because I don't want to spoil you. This book is extremely hard-hitting, and there is a trigger warning in here for child abuse. And the child abuse is not on page, and it doesn't happen to the main character, I will say that, but it is a major theme again with the monsters and what makes a monster. So yeah, but this one, I've read it twice and I've cried both times, and even just thinking about it, I can feel my face wanting to get a little teary. But it's won all of these awards for a good reason, I promise you. The writing is beautiful. The thematic discussion of, are monsters because they're monsters, or like, can people be monsters? Like, what actually makes a monster? And also just Jam in general is just this character that you feel yourself just empathizing with, like, right away. Jam is also trans, and she also, something going on with like selective muteness, if I am remembering correctly. It's been a long time since I read this, even though I have read it twice. I believe she's selectively mute. And yeah, so Jam is just a character that you really will empathize with, because her motivations are very much so like protecting her friends and her loved ones, and getting to like the root of like what the problem is, basically. And I just love that protectiveness that she has towards her friends, and her friends equally are like protective of her. And it's so sad, but also kind of heartwarming. And like the end definitely will like leave you feeling satisfied, I think. And then Bitter, the prequel, is basically the story of the painting. So it goes back in time to when Jam's mother was in I believe college, like early college years, and her mother was an activist, and there was a lot of politically tense situations going on in the city in that time where her college was, and how she got involved with that, and basically how and why pet came to be a thing. And yeah, I just love them. Honestly, I read this first, and then I wasn't expecting to love Bitter as much as I did, but oh my gosh, I thought Bitter was equally as beautiful. Honestly, Okweke Emezi's writing is some of the like best writing I've ever read in my life. I really want to try some of their other work. I know that they recently had one come out called, is it the You Made a Fool of Love with Your Beauty? I think is a newer one, maybe within the last year or two. And yeah, I need to read more of their work. So if you see this, bully me. Bully me into reading more Okweke Emezi. Oh, and they're just beautiful looking. Another book I love so much is Amari and the Night Brothers by B.B. Alston. I think this book in particular, the first one mostly, I do like the second one, and I like the third one as well. I think they're great and solid, but this one for me is like where my like loyalties lie, so to speak. So Amari is a little girl who lives with her mother, and her older brother Quentin had gone missing, I think a year ago, and they're just kind of assuming he's dead, and police are not really looking for him anymore. And something happens which leads Amari to this weird mysterious briefcase, and she gets swept away in this world of like this supernatural investigative academy, and she goes to the academy and is training to be a supernatural investigator. And she learns that her brother Quentin used to work for them, and that's kind of like how he got like lost. And I just think Amari is just so like headstrong, and she really displays like a lot of empathy and kindness for people around her, even people who are like horrible to her. So I feel like she's a great role model. And also I just love her like determination and her drive to like prove people wrong. And her best friend in here, Elsie, is also really cool. I won't say like what her deal is, because I think it's more fun if you were to read it yourself. But this is just a really great book. I think this is such a good book for kids to read too, because Amari does face some like racism issues in her school, like in the real world. And then when she goes to the Supernatural Investigative Academy, she faces discrimination for another reason that I won't say because that is a spoiler. But yeah, so it gives you that parallel of like racism and discrimination within like children at school. And then in the investigative world, there is this thing, this group of people that are discriminated against, and it is definitely like a metaphor for that, like racism and discrimination. And I think Amari is just proving people wrong left, right, and center, including herself, because sometimes she doubts herself a little bit, but is so capable of doing the things that she wants to do. And I love her. I just love her. She's so cute. This is definitely a book that I will be forcing on my child when he gets older. But yeah, I just think she's so fun. Oh, the next book I want to talk about is Ace of Spades by Faerie Abike Amide. Funny story. My friend Shay gave me this book, and the reason why she gave it to me was because she did not like it. I think that she had gotten this like initially right when it released, because obviously the cover is gorgeous and the premise sounded good to her, but she didn't like it. Weird, right? But yeah, so anyways, she sent it to me because she was like, hey, does anyone want this? I was like, yes, me, obviously. And I loved it. Me and Shay's relationship is so funny because like we like a lot of the same things in regards to like video games, and but when it comes to books, oh my god, we could not be more opposite. But I'm so thankful that she sent me this because I loved it so much. So in this book we follow Chiamaka and Devin, and they go to this prep school and essentially they are two of the only Black kids at this school, and there is a secret person who starts sending them messages, like threatening messages and like trying to blackmail them, and just things at the school get so crazy and so out of hand. I would describe this as a book that is perfect for people who like Pretty Little Liars and Get Out, the movie by Jordan Peele, because it just has that, like the secret messenger person from Pretty Little Liars, and then like a little bit of like a pretentious school atmosphere, and then it has a very eerie, only Black people in the room vibe like what Get Out has, and so good. So I will say that I think what drew me to this is like Devin and Chiamaka, like they're just kids, you know, and they're just trying to do their best. Devin is really into music and he wants to like seek out a music career, and he has this teacher at school who's like really encouraging of him, and things at school start happening to them and it's crazy. And like Chiamaka is a straight A student, and she's you know, on the honor roll, and she's like slated to be the valedictorian for the end of that year to give the speech and whatever. And like these things, like they're like the perfect students, and yet the person texting them these like crazy things or messaging them whatever is like finding like the tiniest cracks in their armor and just like digging in, and it's just like wild what happens to them. And I think like this, I think part of why I liked it so much is because like the stakes were so high. I felt like there were definitely times where I felt like these, like they are in danger and it was so like gripping and entertaining and like a little bit nerve-wracking. And I really liked it. This is really fun, and it does kind of have a dark academia like vibe to it as well. Yeah, so this is great. I always recommend this when people ask me for like dark academia, because I feel like this is a great example of that, because it's set in this like pretentious private school and dark things are happening to these characters. So this is one of the ones that I always recommend if you're looking for a really good dark academia book. And the last book I want to talk about is one that I'm actually rereading right now, and that is All Boys Aren't Blue by George M. Johnson. This is a nonfiction memoir in the form of like personal essays, I guess you'd say. And I really think that George M. Johnson, as an author, first of all, the way that they weave these stories of their actual life with like some like intertwined facts and like historical things and like dates and stuff, like you don't even realize you're learning something until you finish the chapter and you're like, oh shit, like I actually learned so much. I thought this was a story about your life, but here I am learning things about America. Here I am learning things about racism. Like it's just so well done. So I really appreciate them just as a writer in general, because that is like a hard thing to accomplish. And I also really appreciate the vulnerability that George M. Johnson displays in this book, because it is a very personal thing to read. This book has trigger warnings for racism, like overt racism and microaggressions. There is trigger warning for sexual assault, I guess coercion maybe. There is a trigger warning for, I just had the list in front of me. What was the other one? I film on my phone and I have a bad memory and I can't remember what it was. And you guys are over there and I'm over here and I can't see what's in there because I'm recording. I will put a list of trigger warnings for this book somewhere on the screen because I really have a bad memory. I'm so sorry. I literally was just looking at it and I can see the first two and the rest of them don't exist in my brain. I'm so sorry. But anyway, the first time that I listened to this, I actually listened to it on audio and it's narrated by the author themselves. And it was just listening to them tell these stories of their life really made me feel like I was sitting in a room with my like real life friend and just chatting over coffee and having one of those like, you know, those like 3 a.m. really deep, meaningful, random conversations you have with your friend where you guys just tell each other everything. That's like how I felt listening to the audiobook for the first time. So now on my reread, I'm going back and I'm reading it on my Kobo and I've been annotating and I've been highlighting. There are so many good quotes in here. And I think that George M. Johnson is really a prolific writer. And I think that they deserve more recognition than what they're getting here on YouTube so far that I've seen. And I think that they really deserve more recognition. And I would also like to point out that All Boys Aren't Blue is one of the most banned books like in our recent like 5 years, and I believe it was the #1 most banned book in 2023, I think is correct. So I'll put that somewhere here as well. And it's really important to read banned books because it helps you see the lived experiences of other people, which just helps you get empathy like for people who are different than you. And I am not like a nonfiction reader in general. Like I have read a couple here and there and I enjoyed them for the most part, but I've never been like a huge lover of nonfiction. But I read 3 in September for Banned Books Week that all stuck with me, and All Boys Aren't Blue being one of them. So I had to add it to this list because I could not in good conscience tell you my favorite books by Black authors without including this one, because I really think this one is one that's going to stick with me for a long time. And I also think it'll be relevant for a long time. A lot of the topics in here that get discussed are things that like have been happening for years, and I think a lot of them are going to continue to happen, which is really unfortunate. But definitely check that one out. Really, really highly recommend. If you need a quick audiobook to listen to, they did an amazing job narrating this themselves. So well done. So those are some of my favorite books by Black authors. I would love to know one of your favorite books by Black authors down in the comments. And if you made it this far, leave a playing card emoji down in the comments, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.